Hello?
This is Jason.
Hi, Jason. How are you?
Hello there. How are you?
Good. It is just so great to finally get you on the phone.
I know it's been far too long. How you been?
Good.
Good.
I see
I'm
that
glad.
you're doing good too. I'm looking at the website for Strange Fruit,
Yes.
and I wanted to talk to you about that. It's been more than a minute since we last spoke. Last time I spoke to you, I think you were still Father Prestige, weren't you?
I was. Yeah. This was probably the early to mid 2000s, and I was still really doing the ball stuff, and I was on the Prestige and doing the ball stuff pretty heavily. But since I'm still a Prestige, for the record, but since then I've kind of taken a back seat to the ball stuff and left that to Larry, and I've kind of been doing, focusing more on my activism and kind of some other endeavors. But I'm still always gonna be a Prestige, for life. So.
Okay, so that means that you and Larry aren't fighting over who's the better father of the house and all of that.
Not anymore. I feel like I proved myself a long time ago when Larry was starting his stripes. So, but Larry and I, we collaborate. We're collaborating on a bunch of projects right now, including Derby City Black Pride. So every once in a while, I have to remind him that I taught him what he knows. So he throws a lot of balls at events, and I have to remind him I taught him what he knows. So, we still have a competitive spirit amongst us, but we're doing okay. So.
That's a good thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So I really didn't prepare any questions because you and I know you well enough to ask whatever is off the top of my head. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I do know how it goes in terms of when you're working for an organization or you're putting out a product, you have to be careful about what's okay to ask or reveal and whatnot. And I'm thinking about
actually. Everything is I can speak candidly about the show. Although I'm free to talk about whatever. I'm not under any kind of contract or anything. Any kind of hush clause. Yeah, you can ask me whatever you like. It's all good. It's all fair game.
Okay. So what's your Adam profile real name? Let me go
what's
there.
What's my Adam profile? It's Kentucky Fried Eagle. Just in case there are any eligible men, in the Chicagoland area who are looking, feel free to hunt me down. But no.
Okay, you told me to ask anything. Okay, now.
Okay, yes.
Tell me, how did you get started with Strange Fruit? And first, let's talk about the name Strange Fruit. Where did that name come from?
Well, cool. Let me tell you how we got started, and I'll tell you how we got to the name. So the reason how we arrived at this radio show, this podcast, Strange Fruit. About this time last year, there were a couple of incidents here in Louisville involving the gay community and some gay nightclub owners. There was a few racial incidents, including a local bar owner had posted a picture of President Reagan bottle feeding a baby monkey, and the caption was like, this is a picture of President Reagan babysitting Barack Obama back in 1960. So it was a really kind of a racially charged incident. There was a lot of kind of uproar in the community, and so me, some of my colleagues, we kind of organized around that issue and addressed that issue. And so as a result, the local NPR station decided to do a story, kind of an in-depth story on disenfranchised populations in the local community, right? So people of color who are gay, people who are gay who are disabled, people who are gay who are Christians, just kind of those untold stories other than your traditional kind of rich, well-to-do white gay dudes. So they did a story called Defining Fairness, where they talked about 7 or 8 of us who kind of represented different segments of our community. And so from that conversation, the producers realized that there was a whole lot more things to be talked about. And so the producer approached me, and my good friend and mentor, Dr. Story, who teaches at U of L, approached us and was like, you know what, we love the things that you all talk about on Facebook, things you all tweet about, the work that you all are doing in the community, because we kind of, were able to take our activism and our education and merge that with pop culture and humor. And so the producers approached us and said, we'd love to talk to you all about perhaps doing a radio show where you talk about social justice issues, but you also kind of infuse your humor and those kind of things. So we met with the producers and the editors there at FPL, and in terms of coming up with a name for our show, we had a long list of names, from brown sugar to this and that, but we really arrived at Strange Fruit because it was sort of a double entendre. It was a play, of course, on the the really well-known Billie Holiday song about, black folks being hung from trees. But then also because of the kind of the slur of gay people being fruity, a little sugar in the tank. So Strange Fruit is a play on the fact that we're both black and that we're gay, right? So that's where the Strange Fruit title came in. We're both black and gay, and we talk about issues that affect both black folk and gay folk.
Okay. And when did the podcast get started?
Oh goodness, we had our first episode, if I'm not mistaken. It was last fall. So we've been going at it for about 7 months or so now. We debuted last fall in our show. We have a new episode every Saturday. We've been consistent every Saturday, with the exception of 2 weeks. We took a week off for the new year. We took a week off to go to a conference. But so we've been on for about 7 months now. We've been going at it.
Okay. And talk about your relationship with your co-host and mentor. Mentioned
Dr. Story. So I first met Dr. Story. She has I think she just completed her 5th year at UofL. Shout out to Dr. Story. She recently got tenure and promotion, so she's now an associate professor at UofL. And so Dr. Story first came to UofL when I was going to school there, and she taught a class called Black Lesbian Lives. And so I was a student in her very first class that she taught. And pretty early on, we hit it off. She moved here from Philadelphia, where she got her PhD, and I had lived, of course, in D.C. In my early 20s. And, she had been in Chicago, and, of course, I went to Chicago for balls when I was on the ball scene. And so there were a lot of things that we really, really had in common. And so pretty early on, Dr. Story and I hit it off. And, over time, our relationship grew from that of a professor and a student to that, really, honestly, a friend. And so, over the last 5 years, we really have been inseparable. I've taken all of her classes, but we really have become kind of colleagues in the work that we do. Certainly she has her own field of being a professor. I have my own field of being an activist, but we've been able to find certain areas where we can collaborate. So, for example, we're on the board of directors for a local organization together. We've done this radio show together. We oftentimes will, we'll lead rallies or lead protests or do community events together. So we really are, if you will, partners in crime. I love her a lot, and so we're having the time of our lives hosting this show together. So.
Okay. And so the show is recorded every Saturday. Is it recorded live where you can have listeners call into a number, or is it just recorded and just later played?
Yeah, so our show is recorded. We usually record our show during the week, and because we have guests not just from here locally in Louisville, but we have guests on a national and sometimes international level. We have to do scheduling things. So we usually will record our shows on Wednesdays or Thursdays, give our producer time to edit it. So our show is actually taped and edited. So when we have just raw footage, we oftentimes have an hour to 2 hours of raw material. That's interviews. We also have a segment of our show called Juicy Fruit, which is like hot topics where Dr. Story and I get together and kind of juice on the latest in pop culture or politics or black gay news. So we'll record our Juicy Fruit segment. We'll do an interview. Sometimes we'll have 2 interviews in an episode. And then we'll do what we call our closing thoughts. And so from all of that material, our producer kind of weaves together a storyline. And so our show is not, we don't do call-ins per se. So we record during the week. A new episode is posted on Saturdays. But it is interactive in the sense that we invite our listeners to correspond with us via Facebook, via our Twitter account, via Instagram account. We really do look forward to feedback from our listeners and our supporters. And we get that a lot. We have folks. We have a guy who lives in India who writes us on a very consistent basis and gives us feedback. We have listeners from all over the U.S. who write us and tell us what they think. They'll tweet us their ideas, their story ideas, their thoughts about our episode. So although we don't do call-ins, we do interact with our folk via Twitter and via Facebook.
Okay. Is there any subject matter that would be too taboo for your Juicy Fruit segment?
Absolutely. There's nothing that's off limits. And I tell you what, when you talk about being Dr. Story, we make such a good team because I like to consider myself a Southern gentleman, of course, and Doc is from the North, and she's very unapologetic about a lot of things. And so, whereas I sometimes try to be too prudish, she does a very good job of balancing that out with you will, the salacious, right? So we've had everything on our show from porn stars. We had a black woman from California who produces queer porn. So we talked about porn. We talked about anal sex. We talked about prostitution. There's nothing that has been off limits. We talked about one episode that we talked about a guy in Kentucky who came and got high and broke into a fire station and began to masturbate with the fire equipment. So we talk about everything on our show. There's nothing off limits. And initially when we first started, we monitor our language so there was no profanity. But after a while, our producer introduced like a beep, like the censor button. So now we cuss on our show and all that stuff. So no, there's nothing that's too taboo for us to discuss. As long as it has some bit of like newsworthiness, or even if it's kind of just like silly and even if it's like silly news, but if somehow it's relevant to black life, to gay life, to politics, to pop culture, to social justice, or we just get a kick out of it, we're going to talk about it. So,
what is the craziest thing that's ever happened on your show during the taping of it?
The craziest thing that ever happened?
Out because it was just,
yeah,
you just went all the way over the edge.
Okay, the craziest thing. Well, I'll tell you what. We had a guest. Okay, I'm sure he won't mind me telling the story. But one week we were pressed for a guest because our guest that week had canceled. So it was a day to record. We had one day to get the show recorded. We didn't have any guests in mind. And so I went on Facebook and I'm like, hey Facebook friends, I need a guest, for our show. Our show had been on for about a month or two, and so folks had a general idea of what we talked about. And so someone recommended to me an up-and-coming author. And this guy had written one or two books that kind of were like, I guess they were like personal narratives and poetry books he had written, where he talked a lot about sex and the misadventures of his sex life and his, and growing up. And so we had him come on the show. We hadn't necessarily pre-screened him, but he came on the show, and we asked him to read some of his poetry. And so he came on the show and he decided to read probably the most X-rated poem that he had. That talks about Pussy, DICK, FU. He literally, and so I'm just reading this guy, so I don't know how to talk him gingerly, because I've already said, feel free to speak freely. We're all about empowerment. You say what's on your mind. But that doesn't necessarily mean when it's time to read your poem, to read a poem laced with profanity, right? This is public radio. So needless to say, we had to basically cut his entire poem from that episode, and I had to, explain to him a few weeks later why that happened. But, so just stuff like that. When you have guests, you never know what your guest brings to the table, and some of our guests, are off the chain. So that stuff like that is what happens a lot. I won't say his name or the name of his book, but if people hit me up on Facebook or something. His name. You know what? If people hunt me down on my Facebook on the Strange Fruit page, I would gladly. And look, I tell you what, if you go through the archive, because we archive all our episodes at WFPL.org, and you can look at all of our past episodes. It's pretty easy to find. Yeah, you can definitely figure it out. It's one of our early episodes, and he's a poet and an author, and it's not too hard to find. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just laughing. That is hilarious.
I might have to send you the raw footage, off the record. Send you the raw footage.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Let me think. I'm thinking. That just threw me totally off track. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's how I felt, yeah.
I love these animated pictures. Who drew the pictures of you?
Okay, so Doc started that, I think, because it was she's really big with social media and technology, and so Doc always creates a really fun avatar GIF for every episode. But then there's this app called Bitstrips, which allows you to make a comic book character out of yourself or your friends. And so Doc got turned on to it a few weeks ago, and so we decided that every week for the show we would put together a little comic strip that tells the story of our lives, usually as it relates to certain truths. So as you'll see, for example, there's one cartoon that has Dr. Story dancing around, listening to the radio show, and it has me in the corner crying. And I'll tell you why, because, funny thing, I hate the sound of my voice on the radio, right? So every time we play an episode together, I always want the volume to be really low. I'm always like, I think I sound crazy. I think I sound horrible. And so she's always really excited to hear the show, whereas I'm always kind of reluctant to listen. And so, she's always really happy to listen. I'm always kind of like going to another room and putting on my iPod with my earphones in. And so, so those comic strips tell the story kind of Straight Truth and how we progress it, and all the funny things that happen as we record our show.
Okay. You know what? I had the same problem just between you and I. When I would hear my voice, recorded voice, I hated it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? I got better when I listened to myself talk. And I slowed down as I talk. That's
something I've learned too. Yeah. I worked on that. I had to learn to slow down my rate of speech. And you also learn, I tell you, if you compare like some of the first episodes, some of the latter episodes, certainly I've learned to slow down my speech, which I'm still working on that. But then also you learn kind of what type of inflection sounds good on the radio, how to really kind of pace yourself and how to phrase questions. Then you learn what sounds good and what you think sounds good. So I can certainly relate to you on that one. Yeah.
Right. So you just get that Barry White voice together.
That's right. Get that sexy voice going. That's right.
Tell me a little bit about this Derby Pride. I'm looking at a flyer that has Tommy Ross appearing as a special guest.
Absolutely.
How did that come about?
Okay, cool. So speaking, I mentioned earlier Larry, my brother Larry, who I've been, he and I were two of the co-founders of the Kentucky ballroom scene from 11, almost 12 years ago. So Larry and I have always kind of been close, but we always talked about Larry and I are always on the hunt for ways to make our community better. And so whereas, my energies have usually been gone towards activism, Larry has certainly channeled his energies towards, entertainment and event productions. And so we both have kind of been leaders in our community. And so we talked about the need for a Black Pride Festival. Indianapolis has one. Of course, Atlanta has one. D.C. has one. Every major city has a Black Pride Festival. And we certainly feel like our city has a lot to offer. We know the kids come in for the balls. We know the kids come in for the pageants. And so we felt like it was time for there to be a really sustainable Black Gay Pride Festival. And people had attempted that in the past, but nothing that we felt like measured up to what we felt like our city. Larry and I really love our city. We love to put forth the best face of our city. So we got together it's been about 8 months or so. Larry and I got together with a few other people and decided that we would put our efforts together to put this Black Pride Festival on. And so we have a fun weekend planned. We're starting June the 6th, which is a Thursday, going until June the 9th, which is a Sunday. We have lots of stuff planned. On Thursday, we're having an open mic night. On Friday, we're having a skating party and a mini ball. On Saturday, we're having workshops at the host hotel. Then that night, we're having our signature party called Sex in the City, where we're having male and female exotic dancers come in from all over the country. Then on Sunday, we're having a church service called An Hour of Power at the host hotel. And then Sunday is to cap it all off, we're having our Pride Day in the park, like a picnic in the park and a field day. And then that night, as you mentioned, is our drag show called Scandal. And it's being produced by a guy named Gordon Fox. And it's going to be a really big drag show, over 20 entertainers from all around the nation, including Tommy Ross, Sophia McIntosh. It's really a who's who of drag and the pageant world. It's going to be off the hook. It's going to be first class. And so we're really excited. We really worked really hard to put together something for everybody. So we have our pageant, we have our drag show for the pageant kids. We have a ball for the ball kids. We have workshops for those who want to learn a little bit something. We have our church service for the church folk. So it's really going to be a fun weekend. And we hope that people from all over, especially our friends and family in Chicago and Detroit, in St. Louis, we hope that folks will come out and really see what Louisville has to offer. So, we're really excited. That's going to be June 6th through the 9th. So send the folks our way.
And do you have a website or something that I can refer people to find out whatever additional information they need to find?
We do. Our website, and it's just launched, so it's improving every day. Our website is www.derbycityblackpride.org. And so you can go there for all of our event flyers. You can go there for information on buying VIP passes. But we also are really big on Facebook. So if you go to Facebook and you type in simply Derby City Black Pride, you'll find our Facebook profile. We're also on Twitter. And on Twitter, we are at Derby City Pride on Twitter. Our email address is derbycityblackpride@gmail.com. And certainly if people know either me or know Larry, they can hit us up individually. But yeah, you can find us on Facebook or on our website at derbycityblackpride.org.
Okay, yeah, because one of you guys actually put the flyers out on my Facebook page, which I, of course, didn't mind, and I put them on Pride at that.
Okay.
No, I don't care. I'm easygoing. Put whatever up there. I don't care.
Yes.
Okay, but don't put no porn up there. Let me not say whatever.
Okay, no porn. Okay, keep it PG. Keep it PG for now.
No. Why is activism so important to you?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Why is activism so important to me? Oh, wow. I don't know if I can answer that with anything that makes sense other than to say that it's just something I've always been called to do. In one way, shape, or one way or another, I've always been called to activism. And so, initially what that meant for me when I was very much involved in the ball scene was that meant that I was going to be a house father. And that I made a very conscious effort to be a house father, to seek out people like my father, Albernian Prestige, the former Albernian Prestige. I really sought out people like Mariah Revlon. I sought out people to teach me the best things about the ball scene, because when I first was exposed to the ball scene, when I lived in the D.C. area, I was exposed to the good, but also the very, very seed, that included the crafting, which included seeing the girls prostitute, which included seeing the kids doing their drugs, and all of those things gave me a well-rounded perspective on what it meant to be a ball kid. So I decided very consciously that I was going to try to model the best behavior, right? So when I became Father Imperial of my own house, and then I left my house and became Father Prestige, I really wanted to be a role model for my children. And so initially my activism was served through being a good parent to my children, to try to show them how to be a productive citizen, how to finish school, how to go into the workforce. And so as I got older and I traveled the country more and I got exposed to more opportunities, that activism translated more into community organizing, HIV and STD prevention and education, to young people's rights, to homeless issues, to how affordable housing issues, to gay and lesbian rights, to women's issues, and now it's immigration issues. So I just always have felt, called to do my strong part to make the world a better place. I do feel like God gives everybody a talent. For me, I couldn't play no basketball. I couldn't necessarily sing all that well. I couldn't vogue all that well. So everybody has a gift as to how they contribute to society. Some people are wonderful cooks. Some people are wonderful artists. Some people are wonderful, have children and or adopt children. So for me, I felt like my talents, my skills, being articulate, being intelligent, being able to navigate the business world, I felt like the best use of my talents was to be an activist and to be a voice for people who could not speak for themselves. And so that's something that really, really is important to me. And, I think I'll probably do it forever. So.
And how did you get the nickname IQ?
How did I get the nickname IQ? Ooh, that's a funny story. Let's see, which version will I tell you? Okay, no, I'll give you the candid version. When I first came back to Louisville from the D.C. area.
Before you give me this candid version, I will have you know that I will write it all down.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
For everybody to see. So don't tell me
that is okay.
Candid that you don't want me to tell everybody else.
I totally understand. I totally understand that. But no,
if you're telling me the candid version, it's okay to say you will tell me the candid version, but don't print it.
No, I'll tell you. I would tell you the candid version, and because it's a story that it's a question I get very rarely, and only a few people actually know the answer to. So that's why it's very interesting, because I very rarely get asked that question. Except, a lot of my kids know it, and a lot of my close friends. But okay, so how I got the name IQ? When I first moved back to Louisville from the D.C. area, when I was about 21 years old, so this would have been like 2001. I had been exposed to the ball scene on the East Coast. I had been been around a couple ball kids, and so I came back to Louisville, and I was in a house called the House of Lourdes, Lourdes. And it was, no shade, it was a late house, the starter house, as the saying goes. But when I was on the East Coast, I discovered that a lot of the cool kids had nicknames, right? So you had Peanut Revlon, or you had Lemonhead Karan, or you had so-and-so this, so-and-so. Everybody had a nickname, right? Pepper LaBeija. Nobody was just Jaison LaBeija or, Donald extravaganza, and everybody had a cool nickname. And so I had decided, once I came back to Louisville, I was talking to my friends, my sister Tori on the phone. I was like, you know what? I want a nickname. I don't want to just be Jaison Lourdes. And so I drew up a list of nicknames that I wanted to call myself. But they all had a meaning, right? So I had a name like Reason, Reason. I had this list of like all these words that signified intelligence or savviness or those kind of things. And so one thing on my list was IQ, because I had always kind of been regarded as somebody who was, intelligent and professional and gentleman, so just kind of, that was always kind of been my thing. I've always kind of been a Southern gentleman, kind of reserved, not too extra. So I called my sister Tori from D.C., and I was like, went over this list of names, and so we decided that I would be Father IQ Lourdes. And it took a while to catch on, because for a while they still called me Jaison Lourdes. And so it wasn't until I left the House of Lourdes and started my own house, the House of Imperial, that I would exclusively buy IQ Imperial. And that was around the time that I really got to know a lot of the regional ballroom players, right? So I started to meet the kids from Chicago, and Indianapolis, and St. Louis, and Detroit. And so as folks got to know me and meet me, they knew me exclusively as IQ. Not many folks really called me Jaison. And so I actually picked the nickname for myself of IQ. But appropriately enough, it fit. Folks seemed to get it, once they got to know me and knew what I was about. It just seemed to fit. And so even to this day, as I've become more of an activist and less of a ball kid, I guess my name precedes itself, and so, it'll be interesting. I'll be on campus, so I'll be at dinner with my mother in a restaurant, and so I'll be like, hey, IQ, and it's always so weird having to explain to people who don't know me from that life, why these folks are calling me IQ. So, but yeah, so that's my name, and I love it, and it fits.
So does that mean that you're secretly an academic?
Am I secretly an academic? I like, the phrase I like to call myself, I call myself an organic intellectual. And that's a phrase I discovered when I first came to U of L, and it basically speaks to the fact that there are some people who aren't traditionally educated, right? I mean, certainly I've been through grade school, grammar school, high school. I was a very good student in high school, graduated really well. I did some college. I simply didn't finish college because I was just too stubborn to write reports and do those kind of things. So I am educated in the traditional sense, but more importantly to me, I'm educated in the sense of I've lived a little bit of life. I've traveled. I've been exposed to certain things. I've learned from reading books. I've learned a lot more outside of the classroom than I have learned in the classroom. So to that degree, I very much am an organic intellectual, or if you want to call it a closet academic. And I do. A part of my mission, I think, is to bridge the gap between those people who traditionally think of themselves as college people, smart people, academics, business folk, and then those people who think of themselves as ball kids, club kids, everyday people. Like that you can be both, and I consider myself to be both. I love to go into banquets and black tie dinners and galas and receptions, but I also love going to a bar once in a while and getting real ratchet, and going to nightclubs and that kind of stuff. So I just think it's the best of both worlds. That's what IQ signifies to me.
Okay. So do you consider yourself to be a mentor?
I do consider myself to be a mentor. That's something that's very, very important to me. I mean, I have gay kids all around the country. I have gay kids in Atlanta, D.C., and Virginia, and New York, and Kentucky, and Indianapolis, and that's something I take very, very seriously. People who know me know I love, I love my kids, and even people who aren't necessarily my gay kids, I'm still a mentor to to people on campus. And, yeah, that's something I consider myself to be a mentor. Yes, and that's a very lucky thing to me.
Mm-hmm. And what is the biggest misconception about you or the work you do?
The biggest misconception about me or the work that I do? Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, I won't talk about, I don't necessarily know a misconception that other people have of me. I'll tell you about my personal struggles with how I'm perceived. That, quite honestly, frequently I struggle with myself in terms of finding a balance and finding a validity in being both IQ and being Jaison, right? So certainly when you first met me, I was a ball kid. A lot of folks who know me from way back when knew me as IQ when I was a Prestige and I was doing the ball stuff and I was traveling and all that stuff. And so I felt like after a while I had to somehow shift who I was and become less of IQ and become more of Jaison Gardner, right? So that is to say that that I guess there came a point in time where I felt like I had to leave behind that life. I had to leave behind the life of throwing balls and throwing parties, and I had to somehow go mainstream. And so I think I convinced myself that I had to leave one behind to do the other. You know, there are sometimes I really, really miss being a ball kid, you know, when I'll start going to balls on a consistent basis here locally. And then there are other times when I feel like, you know what, you know, there's nothing redemptive about the ball scene, or I start to really, you know, I really start to get in my feelings, and I decide to have to leave the ball scene behind and go, and I can't somehow be a ball kid and still be an activist. You know, or sometimes I feel like, well, damn, if I had not been an activist and I had focused more on the ball scene, where might I be? You know, I could be legendary by now, or, you know, so I oftentimes find myself, I have found myself in the past trying to reconcile the dual parts of me, right? And it's only until recently that I've come to the understanding that I can coexist, that I can be both. I don't have to be either or. I can be both at the same time. And so before, as I mentioned, I used to be on campus and somebody would call me IQ, and I would be taken aback. You know, I'd be in a ball and somebody calls me Jason, and I'm taken aback. You know, because I felt like if you don't be a Jason, you don't be in this realm. If you don't be an IQ, you don't be in this realm. But now I've gotten to a place where I'm kind of comfortable with being both all the time. So, you know, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.